Once upon a time, in a small village at the edge of a great enchanted forest, there lived a cheerful little girl who was known to everyone as Little Red Riding Hood. She earned this nickname because she always wore a bright red hooded cape that her loving grandmother had made for her. The cape was as red as a ripe cherry, and it made Little Red Riding Hood feel brave and adventurous. One sunny morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother called her into the kitchen.
"Your grandmother is feeling a bit under the weather,"
she said.
"Why don't you take this basket of goodies and bring it to her? It will surely cheer her up."
The basket was filled with delicious treats, warm bread, sweet honey, and her grandmother's favorite herbal tea. Little Red Riding Hood was thrilled to visit her grandmother, who lived in a cozy cottage on the other side of the forest. Before she set off, her mother gave her a stern reminder.
"Remember, stay on the path and don't talk to strangers."
Little Red Riding Hood nodded eagerly and set off on her journey. The forest was full of wonder. Birds chirped merrily, squirrels scurried up trees, and the sunbeams danced through the leaves. As she skipped along the path, humming a happy tune, she suddenly heard a rustling sound behind a bush. Out popped a large gray wolf. His eyes gleamed with curiosity as he looked at her. Though he had a sly grin, Little Red Riding Hood remembered her mother's advice.
"Good morning, little one,"
the wolf said in a silky voice.
"Where are you going on this fine day?"
"I'm going to visit my grandmother."
Little Red Riding Hood replied politely.
"She's not feeling well, and I'm bringing her this basket of goodies."
The wolf's ears perked up at this news.
"What a kind granddaughter you are,"
he said.
"And where does your dear grandmother live?"
"In the little cottage on the other side of the forest."
Little Red Riding Hood answered. With a plan forming in his crafty mind, the wolf said,
How about a little race? You take the path, and I'll take the shortcut. Let's see who gets there first."
Before Little Red Riding Hood could respond, the wolf dashed off into the trees. She continued on her way, enjoying the sights and sounds of the forest. Meanwhile, the wolf, being much faster, reached Grandmother's cottage first. He knocked on the door, imitating Little Red Riding Hood's voice.
"It's me, Grandmother. I've brought you some treats."
"Come in, dear."
Grandmother called from her bed, thinking it was her sweet granddaughter. The wolf leapt into the room. Grandmother gasped in surprise, but before she could cry out, the wolf gently but quickly tucked her into a closet and put on one of her nightgowns and nightcap. He climbed into her bed and pulled the covers up to his chin, waiting for Little Red Riding Hood. Soon Little Red Riding Hood arrived at the cottage. She knocked on the door, and a voice that sounded almost like her grandmother's called,
"Come in, dear."
When Little Red Riding Hood stepped inside, she felt something was a little off. But she shrugged it off and approached the bed.
"Grandmother, it's me. I've brought you some goodies."
"Thank you, dear,"
the wolf said in a soft voice, trying to sound like the old woman.
"Come closer, my child."
Little Red Riding Hood took a step closer and noticed something strange.
"Grandmother, wait, what big ears you have."
"The better to hear you with, my dear."
the wolf replied.
"And, Grandmother, what big eyes you have."
"The better to see you with, my dear."
But, Grandmother, what big teeth you have."
"The better to eat you with."
The wolf roared, throwing off the covers and leaping towards her. Just then, the closet door burst open, and out sprang Grandmother, holding a broom. She had overheard the whole conversation and wasn't about to let that wolf harm her precious granddaughter. She swatted the wolf on the nose, and he yelped in surprise. At the same moment, a kindly woodcutter who was passing by heard the commotion. He rushed into the cottage and saw the wolf. With a loud shout, he chased the wolf out of the house and deep into the forest, never to be seen again. Little Red Riding Hood hugged her grandmother tightly.
Oh, Grandmother, I was so scared.
All is well now, my dear.
Grandmother said, smiling and stroking her hair.
Thanks to you and our brave woodcutter friend.
From that day on, Little Red Riding Hood always remembered to stay on the path and never talk to strangers. And she and her grandmother often enjoyed tea and treats together, safe and happy in their cozy cottage. And they all lived happily ever after.